Donald Trump is clearly under pressure, and it's showing. With a possible government shutdown ahead, he's working hard to shift the blame, but he knows that's not so easy. The man who calls himself the greatest negotiator hasn't been able to close a deal, leaving him stuck without leverage. In this moment of crisis, instead of stepping up, Trump seems to be stepping back. We'll get into all of this in detail, but before we dive in, if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep going. Now, let's start with the latest updates on the shutdown from Senator Chris Murphy.
From the Senate floor, we are shutting down. We're shutting down because Donald Trump thinks he's a king. This was totally avoidable, but Donald Trump told Republicans don't negotiate with Democrats. That's why this government is shutting down. We didn't shut down when Joe Biden was president. Why? Because Democrats, when they were in the majority, took their responsibility to govern seriously, reached out across the aisle, and built bipartisan funding agreements with Republicans. But what is most important now that we are in this shutdown, is for Democrats to understand that our cause is righteous, and that if we approach this argument with confidence and with gusto, we will win it in the American public. But if we look weak, if we look like we don't believe in our cause, then we will lose this argument, and the country will suffer. What are we saying? We aren't asking for the moon. We are simply saying we don't want health insurance premiums to go up by 75% on the American public. That's what Republicans have engineered as a means to pay for their giant tax cut for billionaires and corporations. We're not asking for some big new healthcare program. We're simply saying if we're going to vote for a budget, we want that budget to not increase premiums on families across this country by 75%, bankrupting American families. You know what else we want? We want this president to start acting lawfully. I have no obligation to vote for a budget that destroys our democracy. In fact, I have a moral obligation to oppose a budget that funds a pursuit of the president's enemies through a campaign of harassment, intimidation, and imprisonment. The American people don't want this giant increase in premiums. The American people don't want the president censoring his critics, locking up his political enemies. But the only way we win this argument is by going out there and being loud, consistent, and confident that the American people are on our side. This fight is righteous, protecting American families from bankruptcy due to Trump's giant cost increases. This fight is righteous, protecting American democracy from destruction. And so let's go out there and win it.
The way Republicans are framing this fight says a lot about their fear and how well they know Americans see their failures in government. That's why they're pushing this false narrative about health care for undocumented immigrants. The reality is, premiums are rising, people are losing coverage, and the responsibility falls on them. So instead, they're trying to distract with misinformation, but it isn't working. Even Speaker Mike Johnson is being called out on these claims.
First point at the White House yesterday after the meeting y'all had with the president and with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. People, as you know, people who are here in the United States legally have never been eligible for the Obamacare subsidies, for Medicare, for Medicaid. So what exactly are you saying that they're trying to do when you talk about giving free health care to them?
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so when we passed the One Big Beautiful Bill, the Working Families Tax Cut, we had Medicaid reforms in the bill. You and I talked about it on the air. What we did was to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse. There were a lot of people on the program who were enrolled in the program who were never eligible to be there. Medicaid is intended for eligible U.S. citizens, not illegal aliens, not also U.S. citizens who are able-bodied workers like young men. So we passed the law. This president signed it into law. Democrats voted against it, of course, and it's been wildly successful. The CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which is the neutral arbiter of all these things, released a report a few weeks ago, earlier this month, and they said, you know what? The bill has had its intended purpose. Premiums are coming down, listen, because 2.3 million ineligible enrollees have been kicked off of Medicaid, which helps to save the program, prop it up. And $185 billion has been saved already in
basically
abuse.
what you did was narrow the eligibility for certain people to get access to the ACA subsidies. What they want to do is undo the changes that Republicans made in that. But basically, wouldn't that only affect people who do have legal status, people who are refugee seekers here in the United States, asylum seekers here?
Those are two totally different issues. Now, they've created this as a new argument that they have as to why they should not keep the government open, but they're arguing a December policy debate for a September funding issue. The subsidies that you're talking about don't expire until the end of December.
No. Those are the subsidies for just everyday Americans. That's one thing that obviously has been the main premise of their argument. But you're saying they want to give free health care to people who are in the United States illegally.
That is exactly what the effect will be.
But when I looked at it, there's a little nuance because they want to undo changes that y'all made, narrowing who is eligible to get that. Those are people who are refugee seekers, asylum seekers. They're not technically people who are here illegally, just cross the border.
No, this is exactly what will happen. And Maxine Waters admitted, I think, accidentally today on the House steps, they want to give health care to everybody.
But Maxine Waters is not in charge. She's not the one. She didn't write this proposal.
She's one of the senior leaders in the House.
And
everybody should Google it and read their counter proposal
yourself. But you see
yourself.
my point, right? You're making this argument that they want to just give health care to everyone who's here illegally. This is not for people who cross the border and don't have paperwork. These are people who have temporary protected status, right?
No, absolutely what will happen if that counter proposal was enacted is illegal aliens would be paid for. American taxpayers, hard-earned dollars, would be paying for benefits for illegal aliens again. We're not doing that.
But it's against federal law for people who are here illegally to get
Yes,
health
and that's
care.
why our reforms are so important to enforce all that. What the important thing to remember is what's happening
I didn't see that in the
tonight.
Democratic proposal that people who are here illegally
No,
should get health care.
because they don't have the level of specification that we had in our bill. It will unwind that and all those things that the CBO just...
There is no proof to what they're saying. They have no leg to stand on, and they have no negotiating power. It's the reason why Donald Trump has hidden away, and we're going to check that out right here. Leader Jeffrey tells reporters there's been no contact with GOP leaders since the shutdown started. Republicans have shut down the government because they don't want to provide health care to working-class Americans. And then they're running around the Capitol now lying about it. So Donald Trump, since this shutdown has started, hasn't said a word to Hockey Jeffrey, to Chuck Schumer, to any Democrats. He's just hiding away scared and panicked. That tells you everything you need to know. And that shows exactly why Democrats need to take this moment to be loud. Because while Republicans, sure, they're pushing their lies, but largely they'd like to stay away from this conversation. And that's why we need to take the opportunity to define it on our terms. And AOC has done a great job of doing that right here.
I mean, Chris, we're here to help people. We are here in the midst of this destruction of the federal government, the federal safety net, $1 trillion eviscerated from people's health care, their Medicare, their Medicaid in this country, with prices that are skyrocketing and life becoming completely untenable for the American people. We are here to try to be a backstop and to be that backstop, which is what the American people have elected us to do.
So right now there's this sort of back and forth about the ACA tax credits. And there's kind of a strange dynamic that I want to get your sense of, right? Because at one level, negotiating over the ACA tax credits is important. I mean, there are people who are going to see their premiums go up 15, 20%, like huge amounts are going to spike. Republicans don't like these extenders. Democrats do. They think it's good for people. But that's fully in the lane of like normal politics. And then at the same time, like the president of the United States assembled 800 military commanders to say, I want you're going to have to go to war against your fellow citizens in American cities. And I think people are having a little bit of a hard time of like, we're going to have a fight on the shutdown about the tax credits, but not about the president wants to declare war on Americans, even though I understand those two are conceptually distinct. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying, Chris, but I think that's something for us to really set the record straight here on. This is not a fight over tax credits. This is a fight over your ability to go to a pharmacy and afford your insulin. We're not talking about just 15 or 20% increases in people's premiums. Tomorrow, healthcare companies, and today, healthcare companies are finalizing the premiums that everyday Americans are going to be paying. And we are talking about a doubling of monthly health care premiums, not even including your deductible, in terms of what people are going to be paying next year because of $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts that were put together earlier this year. And I don't know about anybody else, but I do not think that this is just about a tax break or a small tax extender. This is about fighting not just on tax breaks, community health centers, and ensuring that we have a stability of the American healthcare system. And when Republicans use a legislative mechanism to gut the American healthcare system, we have to use a legislative mechanism in order to restore it and to fight for it. Because at the end of the day, you know, people may talk about tax credits this and tax credits that. What they do understand is when you have insulin and you can't afford it. What they do understand is when your kid has chemotherapy or your spouse gets diagnosed with cancer and you go into a hospital and it doesn't get covered. And you have to choose life and death, what this is about. Now, that does not mean that we ignore the abhorrent violation of law and norms and what is happening with our U.S. cities, but we have a broad spectrum of ways and places that we can fight, including our governors, our attorney generals, and our state and municipal leaders, as you just saw.
This is the moment to stand strong. Don't back down. Push forward and show people what you're really made of. Democrats can't rely on statements or letters right now. It's time to step up and fight for what matters. And we'll keep highlighting that right here on this show. If you want to support the work we're doing, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really makes a difference. If you've made it this far, drop a blue heart in the comments, and until next time, I will see you soon.